9-year-old girl was at an Arizona gun range with her parents, and they let her shoot an Uzi. So the firearm instructor was showing her how to do it, and they took a couple shots on the single shot setting, and at that point everything seemed okay, because it's on the single shot setting, it's just pop, pop, and things didn't get out of hand. But then when they put it on the fully automatic setting, man, it got rough, okay? There was a recoil effect, the gun went up in the air, and it shot the instructor in the face. They took him to the hospital. He eventually died, okay? So is it a good idea to give a 9-year-old an Uzi, even under supervision? Is it ever really a good idea to give an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, just a very, very young kid, a deadly weapon that's basically only a deadly weapon? Like, the only thing you use a gun like an Uzi for is to kill or to practice killing. It doesn't, like, make ice cream also. There's nothing else to it, right? So is it a good idea? Well, no, and I think most reasonable people will agree that it's just not a good idea. Don't give your kid... Everybody thinks like, oh, accidents happen, but they won't happen to me. Wrong. By definition, they're accidents, so of course they could happen to you. They could happen to anybody. It's an accident. People don't think these things through, and this isn't exactly rare. This is where the story gets even more heartbreaking. There's been multiple stories of kids shooting each other while messing around, while playing around, while getting their hands on their parents' guns. And just this month, there's been multiple stories of kids killing each other by accident. Okay? And even in 2008, there was an 8-year-old boy at a gun fair in Massachusetts who shot himself in the face with an Uzi. Same scenario. It recoiled, it came back, shot him right in the face, killed him. So, this is a problem, man. This is a problem, and I want to go ahead and listen to some anger at this story from a possibly unexpected source.
Mika.
Why are they letting a little girl
Why?
shoot?
Why? A man is dead and a little girl's life is ruined. Why are you putting an Uzi in the hands of a 9-year-old girl? It is sick.
It's sick.
It is sick.
It's so sick. I can't even imagine what because you have the right to. You're going to have a little girl learn how to use this gun?
9-year-old girl.
Makes no sense.
What is wrong with these people?
They should be shut down. I'm sorry.
What is wrong with these people? I say this, the first time I saw it, I was so shocked. I say this as the father of an 11-year-old girl. Who would put an Uzi in the hands of a 9-year-old girl? What is wrong with these people?
I don't know.
What is wrong with this culture? Why would they do that? What right is advanced by doing that? A man is dead, and they've ruined a little girl's life.
I mean,
for what?
Second Amendment.
For what?
Thank you, God.
For what?
NRA will tell you they have a perfect right to have an Uzi in the home.
What?
NRA ought to take a look at that video and not edit.
What? The shooting range manager tells NBC News that children as young as 8
Oh, that's so
can
great.
fire weapons with parental supervision.
Good for you.
The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is investigating, and they need to do something about this. I find it hard to believe that our founding fathers put together a Second Amendment to give 8-year-old children the right to fire semi-automatic weapons. And if you think that's what the Constitution of the United States says, you should really go back and read the Second Amendment and then read cases and then read what Scalia wrote in 2008 about what the Second Amendment is and what the Second Amendment is not, and what the Second Amendment protects and what the Second Amendment does not protect. And there is no reading of what Scalia said in 2008, 2009 that would suggest this has anything to do with the Constitution.
So forget what Scalia said, and for the record, Scalia, who is arguably one of the most conservative Supreme Court justices in American history. Even he said, well, yes, of course, the government has the ability to regulate the kind of firearms we have today because these firearms didn't exist back when the Founding Fathers were around. So even the most conservative Supreme Court justices say the gun anarchist crowd is incorrect. But forget what Scalia says. How about we actually look at the Second Amendment itself? It says, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I repeat the first few words. A well-regulated militia. A well-regulated militia. Notice anything about that there? Okay, number one, they're talking about a militia. And for people who say, well, you're not allowed to regulate guns because it's against the Second Amendment, the word regulated is in the Second Amendment. They say a well-regulated militia. So, forgive me for getting a little angry, but the rot is very deep in the minds of Americans where they think, like, nope, this is absolutely set in stone. It's an individual right to bear arms. When, again, the reality is, number one, they're talking about a militia. The word regulated is right in there. It's not about an individual right to bear arms. It's about a militia. Number two, at the time that was written, the most advanced guns were muskets. It took 23 and a half minutes to fucking reload. All right? So you want to be literal about this? Go join a militia in the 1700s and grab a musket, and then we'll defend your right to have a weapon. And then the third thing is, at the time we had to worry about Indians and the British and bears. It's not the same world anymore. Okay? Now we have to worry about Miley Cyrus twerking on TV. It's not the same world. Stop pretending like it is. But let's be, again, overly kind to these guys and put all that aside. Because and for that argument, I'm just going by the text of the amendment and giving you the reality. But let's look at the actual reasoning behind the Second Amendment. Because it's not what you think it is. Even liberal Democrats, okay, people who otherwise mean well, they'll all repeat the same thing. It's this mantra. It's this thought virus. It's this meme that's gotten into people's heads, and they can't help themselves. Everybody goes, well, the Second Amendment, the whole reason for it is to be the last line of defense against the tyranny of the government. So if they get out of control, we can fend them off. That's not true. And it's actually kind of silly to think that, because I don't know if you know this, the government has Abrams tanks and F-22s and chemical weapons and biological weapons and grenade launchers and nuclear weapons, and you would be wiped out on a Tuesday before brunch. Okay? Your Ruger 22 as you're running in the forest of Montana, Cletus, isn't going to work. And that's not what the intention was behind the Second Amendment. So what is the intention behind it? Well, if you actually bothered to do any research and you read the Founding Fathers' arguments, okay, and if you read their letters back and forth between each other, you would realize the Second Amendment is about two things. Number one is standing armies. So the Founding Fathers were terrified of what would happen if we used our military and sent them overseas to fight, and then they came back and they didn't disband. That was the worry, because historically the founders knew from learning about history that when you have armies that are at home and together, that always threatens the stability of the government, because the army could just overthrow the government like that. Okay, a good example of that, by the way, is Egypt today. They just got rid of Morsi. Sisi felt like it one day. He's like, okay, you're gone. And they just got rid of him. Why? Sisi controls the military, and Morsi was democratically elected, but they didn't give a fuck. They said, look, we're the military, gone. So that's what the founders were afraid of. So what was the Second Amendment for? Well, what they were saying is, look, when the military comes home, you have to disband. We're mandating that you have to disband. You can't stay together. You're not allowed to. However, we're going to be kind to you and say this. Our concession is you're allowed to keep your guns. So if you were in the military and you come back home, you have to disband, but you can keep your guns. Not the farmer, not the marketplace owner down the street. The military guy who's back home, you can keep your guns. That's reason number one. Reason number two is, this is my favorite one because nobody knows this, but it's unbelievable. The Second Amendment was to preserve slave patrols in Virginia. Isn't that amazing? See, Virginia was hesitant to join the United States of America. They weren't sure if they wanted to join the Union. So what the Founding Fathers did to entice them to join is, they said, look, if you join, we're going to allow you to form militias and to patrol your northern border. Now, why is that relevant? Well, the reason why that was such a big deal is because Virginia was a majority slave state. It was about 60% African American at the time. They were slaves, right? And the fear was, well, the second that we join the Union, all of our slaves are just immediately going to rush the border and go north and free themselves. Why wouldn't they do that, right? So what the founders said is, well, and by the way, the original wording of the Second Amendment was this: the right of the people, hold on, wait for it, I gotta find it again. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free country, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Today it's different. Today it's, and how it was passed is, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. So they changed it from country to state. Why did they make that change? Because they tried to make clear it's about you, Virginia. It's about you. A state, not the country, but a state. So you have your militia in your state can patrol the northern border and stop the slaves from escaping north. So in reality, one of the main reasons for the Second Amendment was to preserve slavery. Was to say, okay, Virginia, you can join the Union, and we're going to allow you to patrol your northern border to stop the escaped slaves. Isn't that amazing? See, people don't know. History has a way, or culture has a way, of taking the historical reality and putting it through the ringer. And another reason behind that is, I mean, we're not intellectual, right? People aren't good with nuance. They're not good with complexity. They're not good at reading through dense articles or arguments and understanding how the reality might take a good 10 minutes to explain to somebody. So what do? They go to sound bites. They go, no, the Second Amendment is to stop, it's to prevent tyranny. It's the last line of defense. Why? I don't know. I heard fucking some conservative douchebag say it, so I'm going to say it too. Not true. Just not true. And if you did the research, you would know it. But look, and the final thing I'll say about this is, I'm not arguing to ban guns. I haven't seen a single progressive or liberal or anybody argue to ban guns. All we're saying is very simple. Just do moderate regulation so we lower the number of gun deaths and we lower the number of accidents and suicides and homicides and you name it. So instead of having 32,000 gun deaths on average every year, because we have gun anarchy in the U.S. with over 300 million guns and laws on state books that allow you to carry in church, allow you to carry in a bar at a federal level. If you're on the terrorist watch list, you can still get a gun. 40% of the gun sales have no background check associated with them whatsoever. So a bipolar person can get a gun, a crazy person can get a gun, a manic person can get a gun, a schizophrenic can get a gun. I mean, all we're asking is this: universal background check with some rigid rules that prevents those people from getting guns, right? 100% across the board, universal background check. Ban high-capacity magazines. Ban assault weapons. And put some age restrictions, for Christ's sake. That's the new one that comes about today that makes sense. Like, why? No, a 9-year-old should not be allowed to shoot an Uzi. I'm sorry. What's the age for driving now? It's been so long for me, I don't remember. 16, 18, something like that? So we need to wait until then for somebody to drive a car, and their argument is, well, it's a weapon, so they can't do it before then. But at least the car, it's not just a weapon, it's actually a vehicle which takes you from point A to point B. A fucking Uzi is just a weapon! And they're like, no, but you could do that at 9. Let's stop being silly. This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and accidents like this are going to keep happening if we don't do something about it.